I once spent 14 hours building a landing page whilst the only thing I actually needed to do that day was send just 10 DMs. 14 hours on font sizes and button colors for a page nobody would ever see because I hadn't done the outreach to send anyone there. Now, this wasn't laziness. This wasn't a lack of discipline. That was my brain's operating system working exactly as it was designed to. And in this video, I'm going to show you why it does that and what to actually do about it. Now, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Jack Taylor, and I've been building businesses online and offline for 10 years. And about 2 years ago, I was told that I have an ADHD brain. Now I work with other entrepreneurs that are higher up on the ADHD spectrum who are brilliant at the exciting stuff and absolute dog shit at the boring stuff. Because I am also one of those two. Everything I'm about to tell you, I have figured out by living it first, not reading it out of a textbook. Right, so here's what was actually happening on that 14-hour landing page day. Despite what the narrative online tells you, I wasn't being lazy or undisciplined. My brain, as I said, was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Because this brain type, what I call a hunter brain, doesn't run on importance like most people's brains do. It runs on interest. And those are two completely different operating systems. You see, most productivity advice assumes your brain works like a prioritization engine. You write down the important things, you rank them, and then you do them in order. Simple. Except if you have a brain that is similar to mine, your brain doesn't give a shit about the ranking. Your brain cares about one thing and one thing only: dopamine. And dopamine doesn't respond to importance. It responds to 4 very specific triggers. Let me talk you through them. Think about the last time that you completely reorganized your office on a whim. Nobody asked you to, and it likely wasn't on your to-do list for the day. But maybe you saw a video about desk setups, and suddenly you're 3 hours deep rearranging cables and ordering storage containers off of Amazon. That right there is novelty at play, something your brain hasn't done before. The dopamine system lights up that there is a fresh problem to solve, and your brain is off to the races. Now think about this one. You've got a launch coming up, and you decide to build the entire funnel yourself: the tech, the emails, the landing page, the automations. Now, truth be told, you don't know how to do half of it, and that is exactly why you can't stop. You're up until 2 a.m. watching tutorials and figuring it out piece by piece, and to be honest, you're genuinely enjoying it. And that is trigger number 2, challenge. Your brain loves a puzzle to solve. The harder something is, the more it requires you to figure it out, and therefore the more dopamine it generates, which is why you can spend an entire weekend building something complex while simultaneously being unable to reply to 3 emails that would take you just 2 minutes each. Now here's another one. Imagine you've got a presentation to give tomorrow morning. You've known about it for 3 weeks. Have you prepared? Of course you haven't. The night before the presentation, you'll sit down and produce the best work that you have done in months, probably staying up until stupid o'clock doing it. And it'll be good, really good. And that is trigger number 3, urgency. A deadline that feels close enough to feel real. If it's 3 weeks away, your brain cannot feel that. It basically doesn't exist yet. But 12 hours away, now the dopamine starts to kick in because the consequence is imminent, and your brain finally starts to treat it as real, and usually as a threat. And then there's the obvious one, the thing you do for free, the part of your business that you could talk about for hours on end and never get bored. For me, it's building things, systems, content, strategy. I will hyper-focus on that stuff all day without blinking, which brings us to the 4th trigger, which is personal interest. And when a task has this, your brain doesn't need discipline or willpower or a color-coded calendar to get into gear. It just goes. So let's go back to that landing page situation for a second. It had novelty. I was designing something new. It had challenge. I was problem solving in real time. And it had personal interest. I genuinely enjoy that kind of creative work. So I had 3 out of the 4 triggers all firing at once. Whereas the outreach DMs that I was arguably meant to be doing, they had 0 out of 4. I had sent DMs before. There was no challenge. There was no deadline. And I find outreach boring as hell. So my brain made the decision for me. This was not a conscious act. My dopamine system literally wouldn't supply the engagement for the task that mattered. And it flooded me with engagement for the task that didn't. And this is the bit that most people miss. You've probably spent years beating yourself up about a pattern similar to this, calling yourself lazy, thinking you lack discipline, wondering why everyone else seems to be able to just do the thing, whilst you're over here rearranging your Notion dashboard for the 4th time this week. Well, the truth is, you're not actually undisciplined. Your brain is interest-driven. It is not importance-driven. And every system that you've ever tried to fix this was built for an importance-driven brain. That is why it never worked. And no amount of increasing the stakes or guilt is going to make you do it. Think about time blocking. It sounds great in theory, right? You map out your day into these nice little neat boxes. 9 till 10, I'll do my emails. 10 till 11, I'll tackle my content. 11 to 12, I'll be on sales calls. I have tried it more times than I can actually count. And what actually happens is this. By midday, I've done none of the things that were in the boxes. Not because I was sat there doing nothing. I was doing plenty, believe me, but none of it was what I had planned. And then the guilt kicks in. You look at your beautifully color-coded calendar and you feel like a failure because you couldn't follow a plan that a neurotypical 12-year-old could stick to. Again, the problem isn't that you're weak-minded by nature. The problem is that time blocking assumes that your brain can context switch on command, as if it's going to say to itself, right, it's 10 o'clock. Time to stop doing this really interesting thing and start doing that boring thing that I know I should be doing instead. Your brain doesn't work like that. It physically cannot do that off of its own accord. And don't worry, neither can mine. Object permanence, time blindness, the inability to feel future deadlines as real. All of these are features of this brain type. And time blocking ignores every single one of them. The same thing is true with eat the frog. You know the advice, do the hardest, most important thing first thing in the morning. Get it out of the way. And again, it sounds logical. And for a lot of brain types, it works. But for us, it is a disaster. Because again, here is what actually happens. You wake up, your brain is at zero. You have no momentum, no dopamine built up, and someone's telling you to immediately tackle the biggest thing on your to-do list. Going from zero to the hardest thing doesn't work for this brain. Instead, you maybe open the document, maybe you write one sentence, then you check your phone, you make another coffee, and before you know it, it's 11 o'clock and you've done nothing, but you have the added bonus of feeling like shit about yourself for the rest of the day. Now, what I actually teach to my clients is the opposite. We install something called palette cleansers. These are the small completable tasks, the things that you can knock out in 5 or 10 minutes that you do first thing. Reply to that message, update that spreadsheet, send that quick email. These tasks aren't the most important ones, but that is not what we're optimizing for. The point is that every time you complete something, your brain gets a small dopamine hit. You tick something off and you feel this micro sense of progress. And then that starts to build. Within the first hour, you've completed 5 or 6 things. Your brain is warmed up and you've got a string of dopamine going. And you are now in what I call a state of momentum. And at that point, then you can eat the frog because you're not going from 0 to 100. You are going from 60 to 100. And that gap is far more manageable. Now, it's the same principle as warming up before a workout. Nobody in their right mind walks into a gym and tries to deadlift their max cold. You build up to it. And your brain, it needs the same thing. It needs that period of time before you eat the frog where it can warm up, where it can get primed, and we can start stringing together dopamine so it is ready for the deadlift. Now, I'm curious, what's your version of the landing page? What does your brain lock onto when it should be doing something else? Drop it in the comments because I want to know. So that's the first practical shift. Stop eating the frog first. Warm your dopamine system up with palette cleansers, then tackle the hard stuff once you've got momentum. But Jack, what about all the boring tasks that still need to happen? Because understanding that your brain is interest driven is great, but the VAT return still needs filing. Those invoices still need sending, and the emails still need answering. Well, this is where I use something called CEO time. Every Monday morning before I do any interest-driven work, I batch together all of the admin tasks that are necessary to run my business, but don't light my brain up. Things like bookkeeping, reviewing numbers, updating trackers, the boring but objectively important stuff. I do it all in one single block on a Monday. And I do it first before I touch anything interesting because I know that if I start with the interesting work, there is not a chance in hell that I'm going to come back to that admin. My brain will lock into whatever's exciting and the admin is just going to sit there untouched until the following Monday. Now, this isn't a discipline hack. This is just designing around how this brain actually operates. I am no longer fighting the interest-driven wiring, but I am working with it, getting the boring stuff done before the dopamine-rich work pulls me in. And for the tasks that don't even make it into the CEO time, the ones that genuinely don't need to be you, I use a framework that I call DARE. D stands for delegate it. Can somebody else do this? A stands for automate it. Can a system handle this? R stands for redesigning it. Can I attach this task to something that my brain already engages with? And E stands for eliminating it. Does this actually need to happen at all? Because you'd be surprised how many tasks on your plate fail all 4 of these filters. Things you've been doing for months, maybe even years, that don't actually need doing, or at least don't need to be done by you. Now, the goal isn't to force your brain to do the things it hates. The goal is to remove as many of those things as possible, batch the ones that remain, and then point your brain at the work that it was built for. Now, I had a client, Bradley, who came to me absolutely buried. He is a talented, young, smart bloke, working extremely hard, but his efforts were scattered across about 15 different priorities, and none of them were moving. So the first thing we did was run what I call the 1-3-5 process. We created one clear vision for him for the next 90 days, 3 objectives that would guarantee that vision happened, and 5 specific actions per objective, leaving him with 15 actions in total that needed to be completed for the quarter. That is it. Anything outside of those 15 aligned actions got parked. And as a result of this process, it forced him to narrow his field of visibility. So instead of his brain bouncing between 15 different priorities and making progress on none of them, he had a single clear target. And when you give a hunter brain a single clear target within a 90-day horizon, which is what we call a hunt, the dopamine system actually engages with it because it feels close enough to feel real and urgent. Now, Bradley hit his 90-day goal in just 3 weeks. We are talking about the same person who had been spinning his wheels for months. He had the same brain, the same set of skills, working in the same business, in the same market. The only thing that changed was that we narrowed his focus and pointed his wiring at the right target. Because that's the thing about this brain type. The engine is genuinely powerful. When it fires in the right direction, it has the ability to move faster than almost anything. So the problem was never the engine itself. It was that the engine was firing at everything simultaneously and consequently going nowhere. So if you're watching this and you recognize yourself in any of it, the 14-hour landing page, the guilt after a failed time block, the to-do list that never gets touched, I want you to understand something. Despite what anybody online will tell you, you do not have a discipline problem. you have a design problem. Your days, your weeks, your business, they are not built currently for your brain. And no amount of willpower is going to fix that structural issue. So here is what I would do. Start with palate cleansers in the morning instead of eating the frog. Batch your boring admin into one protected block before you do any interest work. Run the DARE framework on your task list and get rid of everything that doesn't need to be there. And if you're feeling really scattered, sit down and build your own 135. One vision, 3 objectives, and 5 actions each to be completed over the next 90 days. Give your brain a target they can actually lock onto, because the brain was never the problem. The brain is your asset. We just need to stop building around a brain that we don't have and start building around the one that we actually do. Now, everything I've just talked about, the scattered effort, the spinning wheels, the feeling of working harder than everyone and going nowhere, there's a name for that ceiling you hit. I call it the chaos ceiling. And it is the single biggest reason ADHD entrepreneurs get stuck at their current revenue. And I break that down in detail in this video here. So give it a click and I'll see you there.